instruction. This past week was our 4th week in physics. It was kind of a short week since we only had class on Tuesday. The rest of the week we were given to work more on our group projects. While in class, we covered graphs, video analysis, and forces. We are now moving into crunch time for our projects. With February 24th, our scheduled launch date, approaching quickly, I am beginning to learn more about what I need to learn to accomplish the goals I set forth for myself when it comes to our first project, through the lessons and challenges I've experienced in and outside of class. What I did. In class we reviewed more about graphing position, velocity, and acceleration versus time graphs, and we're tested in our groups on our understanding of how to apply these concepts. We also analyzed 3 different videos through Logger Pro. 2 of these videos were of car races, and the other one was of a man shooting a basketball. Through Logger Pro, we were able to calculate the variables, such as the initial and final positions, velocity, and time. This exercise was related to our projects, and we were taught how we can use the video taken from our launches and put it into Logger Pro to create our graphs for our instruction manuals, and to use to track and calculate different variables. Moving forward, we went into the topic of forces and created charts within our tables that listed what we did and what we know about forces, and then shared what we did with the class. After which we had a few demonstrations of a basketball sitting still on the floor and a basketball rolling across the floor to get our discussion about forces rolling. We talked about the different types of forces causing the basketball to stay still or to move. We then were taught the correct way of expressing this information into a diagram. My group and I spent a lot of time outside of class working more on our project. Since David would be out of town at a conference in Chicago on Thursday, we were given the class period to work with our groups on our projects. My group and I continue to work on the reconstruction of our launcher. We have run into a vast amount of obstacles, it seems, and have not yet been able to reach the landing distance of 20 to 30 meters when testing our launcher. This has caused us to rethink our original approach. With considering our second project as well, we created a new design for our launcher and went back to the drawing board and had everyone research the topics outlined in our project, such as Newton's law of motion, velocity, displacement, and whatnot, to gather new ideas we can apply to our project moving forward. What I learned more about how to use Logger Pro with videos, since that was something I struggled with before. I took more detailed notes this time to refer back to when working on Logger Pro on my own at home, so I could be more comfortable when using this program. I also learned more about velocity versus time graphs. I found during our group quiz in class that I wasn't as confident in graphing velocity graphs as I thought I was. I also learned how to draw diagrams that show different types of forces interacting with an object. I learned how to use Buzzword more and found how to share documents I create in Buzzword with my group. I also realized how much harder and time-consuming this project is than I originally anticipated it was going to be. I learned that time can creep up on you fast, so it's really important to stay organized and on top of things, otherwise things get kind of stressful. I found this past week that I tend to take over and become kind of bossy, or as some may say, leader-like, when I feel like things are not getting done or unorganized. And I have decided that every group really does need some kind of leader to keep the group on track and help the group see when things aren't flowing in the way they should. Through my studies, I learned how forces play into Newton's laws of motion, and learned that our diagrams we draw to show force are called free body diagrams. I also learned how to calculate different types of forces, such as net, friction, and what I want and need to learn. After class on Tuesday, I decided I need to learn more about the different types of forces there are, and I wanted to practice more drawing the diagrams that show force to make sure I mastered the concept correctly. I also needed to learn more about what my group as a whole wants to do moving forward with the 2 diagrams we have designed, so we can modify our timeline and get our project in on time. I also am anxious to learn more about what my group found through their research over the weekend and the ideas they have for how we can apply what we learn to our project. Conclusion. Overall, my group has experienced a few drawbacks this past week that we were not expecting with our launcher. We have a lot of things to consider moving forward to get to where we want to be, such as with our timeline. I feel I have taken quite a bit away from the lessons taught in class and the studying I did on my own on forces, motion, displacement, calculating variables, and more. I am excited to take what I learned and use it this next week along with what my group learned to tackle the previous struggles